Right then. I watched a film on Sunday.
I watched the film last Wednesday. Did you? I bet. Did you actually listen to the podcast last week?
Yes.
Our podcast?
Yeah. Well, I heard the beginning. Yeah.
What was I going to say? First of all, I think it's a night. I'm kind of glad we've left it a week to do it, because I think for those diehard fans who don't want to hear anything, they'll have already seen it. Yeah. Obviously, we'll try and not give away the big spoilers.
Well, to be fair, I think we're going to have to. So I think maybe what we do is do what we did with Bond, and we maybe we do a kind of opening, set it up, general thoughts, and then we'll be like, we'll do that. So before we get into spoilers, we'll give a time where they need to jump to. Anyway, okay. We'll find. Okay. So there will be spoilers in a bit, but we're good for now. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
We'll let you know if you don't want spoilers when to stop listening.
Yeah.
But we're a week in now, so most people who are really keen to see
know what's going on. Yeah.
Absolutely. So this is Spider-Man: No Way Home. It's the third in the Tom Holland trilogy.
In the Home trilogy.
It's possibly the first of two Tom Holland trilogies. Possibly not. It's all a bit up in the air at the moment whether he's going to carry on or not. And like you said,
spoilers. He is. Let's face it.
But I think, like you said the other week, you kind of get the impression like contracts are being negotiated. And things like that, so this is on the back of Homecoming and Far From Home.
Yeah.
It's No Way Home, and trailers have made it clear, and speculation has made it clear that this is going to have involvement with Doctor Strange and some sort of tying in with other universes, so the multiverse sort of idea that would bring in other characters
from the Sony Spider-Man verse, let's put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah. So from the trailers, we know from these trailers that we're getting villains. So we're seeing Doc Ock, we're seeing Green Goblin, Electro, Sandman, and the Lizard. Okay, who have all come from the Sam Raimi trilogy and the Andrew Garfield two Amazing Spider-Man films.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
And as the trailers have been released, it's you've been able to piece together a little bit more of an idea of what's going to happen and the context of why that's going to happen as well.
Yeah.
Coupled with that, lots of sort of information and speculation on certain actors being seen on sets.
And certain actors denying whether that they're in this film,
and even people saying these pictures have been deep fakes, things like that.
Yeah.
But what they've done a marvelous job of doing is A, building the hype of it, and B, actually ultimately still managing to deny stuff and keep a lid on stuff up until release, which is why it was so special. The occasion, the event of seeing this film, like what a marvelous job they did, and what a marvelous job other people have done of keeping it quiet as well.
Yeah, definitely.
In the meantime.
Definitely. And it's probably just trying to like
and so just a little bit of a setup before we move on. So at the end of so this all leads on almost immediately after the end of Far From Home, whereby you've had the huge events in London with Jake Gyllenhaal's character, which I can't remember his name right now. Mysterio, there you go. And he has revealed that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And this is, causing huge problems for Peter Parker in New York in his personal life.
Yeah.
In a way that what's wonderful about this is it just doesn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah.
Even in that, like, thinking, God, he's having a really hard time.
Yeah.
But, like, there's something so cool about all of it and the way he's dealing with it.
Well, again, from the trailers, we know he goes to Doctor Strange and asks Doctor Strange to do a spell that will make people forget that he is Spider-Man. But what we don't find out is the real reason why he asked him to do that, and that reason is so like it's almost silly, and there's a bit of a joke made about it. What, you didn't check this first? And it's like, but I love that it's that like it still makes you think he's a high schooler. He's 17, 18 at the time, in America, and it's like so silly. that he's gone to all this lengths to do this, again. I won't give it. It's not a huge spoiler, but I'm not going to give it away right now. But I love it. I love that it's just like, oh, and again, it still feels like, to a certain extent, up until about the halfway mark, this trilogy still feels very influenced by John Hughes and Ferris Bueller, though, and like those kind of Brat Packy kind of films. Obviously, the second half of this goes completely, it's an action film. You know what I mean? Whatever, and that's great, but it still holds those cards quite close to its chest, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that line of what you didn't do this first. The thing I like about that is it's so self-aware, because if that line wasn't there, people would be sat there thinking, well, this is just dumb, because why don't you just do this? It's kind of it's almost like they've put it in afterwards and gone, stick this line in there because that was what you know what I mean? I think before we go into sort of like more spoiler territory for everyone else, let's just say, I think we both loved it, didn't we?
Yeah, I loved it. I maybe wouldn't go as far as what you said on the podcast last week, that it's a perfect film, because actually, if I'm sitting back, it's trash, right? But it's complete fan service trash. And I've said this before I said this about Bond and Ghostbusters. I'm a fan. So I loved it. Sit back and it's silly. Things don't make sense. It goes silly action. But what is wrong with that? It's great. I go to cinema to, a lot of the time I go to the cinema for spectacle, and that's exactly what I'm getting. And people aren't going to like it. Scorsese, Grumpy Ridley, fine. Do whatever you want. But I absolutely loved it. It was fantastic.
I genuinely wouldn't change anything about this film. I will, and we'll speak about that in a little bit. And the more I've thought about it since, I've been like, why didn't they just do that as well? Or why didn't they include that? But other than those little bits, I'm not, for what they had and for what they had to work with, it's just bloody brilliant. And I'm not even a major fanboy. But don't get me wrong, so much of it is the fact that I got drawn in by the event. The event of the whole thing, the atmosphere in my screen was just unbelievable. It's like being at a gig.
And that's it. And I think, like, unfortunately, you didn't get the cinema experience with Endgame. No. And it was a very, very similar experience. And that's why I love Endgame so much. And that's why that whole, end of that saga was so special to me, because in the cinema, when when those particular things happen in Endgame, I was just hooting, hollering, crying, because why would you not? You're surrounded by loads of people who feel exactly the same as you do about what we're seeing on screen. And it's the same thing with Spider-Man. There was even very, very early on, there's one kind of quick reveal. Probably in the first 10 minutes. And I was like, oh, yes! Yeah, the brick. Yeah. I was like, yes, I fucking knew it. Brilliant. And Max was like, calm down. I was like, you watch these things with me. And she was like, it is cool. It is quite cool. Jumping back to, I'm meandering all over the place now, but jumping back to what you were saying about would you change anything? Yeah, there are things I'd change. But what I said to Max on the way home, Max was like, that went so quickly. It's a long film. She's like, it was so quick, went so quickly. And I was like, yeah, I needed to wee all the way through. I said, but was there any point where looking back, where you would have given up that scene to go and have a wee? And she was like, no, because I absolutely loved every single second of it. And I'm like, perfect. That's it. That's all you need to know. It's great.
Yeah, definitely. Right. So should we say now?
Yeah.
Spoiler territory coming. There you go. Right. So speculation was sort of accurate, shall we say?
Yes.
And that's it. You knew it was coming. You absolutely knew it was coming. You just didn't know to sort of what extent the involvement would be, and sort of how they would be utilised.
And just to say, they and when we say they, obviously we're talking about Andrew Garfield's Amazing Spider-Man and Tobey Maguire's Sam Raimi Spider-Man. They were utilised far more than I thought they were going to be. Absolutely. I just expected them to swoop in, in the last 10 minutes and join in the fight, but actually they were involved for probably
50%
just,
of the film.
maybe 50% of the film, something like that.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant. Before we get into that, obviously, as we said, we were talking about the brick earlier.
Yeah.
The first big reveal we get is that Charlie Cox is reprising his role from the Netflix TV series as Matt Murdock and Daredevil. And you've not seen these, and they do. The quality does drop, but the first series of Daredevil is brilliant. It really, really is. I do recommend you go watch it because it's great. And just seeing him sharing the screen with Tom Holland, just the thought again from being this fanboy of comics and things like that, knowing that Daredevil and Spider-Man can now be on screen together, it's fucking great. It's so good. The 13-year-old in me is just going, this is fucking brilliant. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah, really is, really is.
And so you get him coming into it. You get J.K. Simmons coming back as the bugle guy.
J. Jonah Jameson.
That's it. Is he in the first two?
No, he's at the very end of the second one because he's Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
That's it. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And you get this spell that happens, and the reason being is because he wants to go to university with his mates, and it's not just affecting his life, his identity reveal. It's revealing Ned and MJ's lives as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what's causing him the most. That's what's causing the most problems in his head. So that's what sort of drives him to go to Doctor Strange. That sort of thought. Yeah. So that's the point at which Doctor Strange says, "Why don't you just go and ring the university? Why don't you just accepted the letter and just rolled over, and then the first thing you do is come and see me to see if I can cast a spell which changes everyone in the universe and affects the whole universe for it." And you see this spell going wrong, and it's the spell going wrong which causes these sort of breaks in between the universes that pulls people in who know who Peter Parker is or know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And the key bit of that spell, which actually is the first little thing that I would change, is that people who know Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And all I'll say is I wish that spell was people who know the identity of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Because that would be a game changer.
Yeah. Because so when Ned's doing the show me Peter, at one point I wanted him just to go show me Spider-Man, and we'd see a young lad sat at his computer, and he doesn't. So Miles doesn't need to know. Well, exactly. Miles doesn't need to know that he's going to be Spider-Man, but the universe knows that he's going to be Spider-Man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I did this.
Tell them. Go on.
I'm sat in the cinema, and as I do often with Dave when I'm sat in the cinema, sit down, got my popcorn, or anything like that. Take a photo of me in the cinema without thinking of what was on the screen. So it was obviously trailers. There was a trailer or an advert or something with a young black lad sat at a desk looking up as if I don't know, in awe or looking up, looks troubled in some way. I said to you, and you said, that better not be a bloody spoiler. That better be an advert of a trailer or something. I was like, I see what you see there.
You see it. That's nice.
It is an advert.
Anyway, there we go. So the things to kind of know, obviously we've said, we've got our 2 returning Spider-Man, which is brilliant, but we also get 5 villains. They should have just brought a 6th one in to make it the Sinister Six, but never mind, they didn't do that.
Who was missing? Was there someone missing?
Well, the Sinister Six, they all it varies a little bit, but Vulture's usually in there, so they could have brought back Michael Keaton's Vulture, but whatever, they didn't.
They weren't going to bring back James Franco, were they?
Well, let's face it. Anyway, so the couple of throwaway ones. The Lizard was a bit throwaway. Reese fans, and apparently, what I messaged you saying, it looks like they're just using footage from the Amazing Spider-Man because he's literally Reese fans is only in it on screen for 2 shots because the rest of it's CGI and he's in his lizard form, and apparently that's what they did. So very, very random. Thomas Hayden Church as Sandman, a bit throwaway, whatever. We got Alfred Molina coming back as Doc Ock, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Willem Dafoe having an absolute ball back in his Green Goblin, gear and just proper hamming it up, but bloody loving it. But also, and this probably won't mean much to you because you've not seen Amazing Spider-Man 2. Notoriously, Jamie Foxx is terrible in Amazing Spider-Man 2 as a Lecho. It's just wrong. He's blue. He looks a bit like part of the Blue Man Group or Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen. It's just weird. So what they do is they kind of turn that and just make him a little bit more normal, looking like Jamie Foxx. And I thought he was really good. Really engaging, and it was a far more kind of interesting role than he plays in the Amazing Spider-Man. So I was quite glad to have Jamie Foxx involved. But for me, as I mentioned, Willem Dafoe was absolutely brilliant as a Green Goblin. Norman Osborn, you could tell it's from a completely different tonally, toned universe because it's definitely up to 11, hamming it up. But whatever, it worked for me.
The thing I like about all these villains that they brought back is, in all of their first films, they are the villains. They are the quite scary, quite sort of terrifying, the antagonists, really. But in this, they're stripped down of all that, and they're almost like humanized, and they're quite playful, and it's like, they're just like, the comic book characters. You know what I mean? Sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I really, really like that, and they almost taking the mick out of themselves, especially with Doc Ock. And Lizard. I thought that was really, really cool.
Again, it gets a bit silly, but for me, there's like a weight. There feels like there's a bit of a weight to this film. It feels like there's more at stake than there has been before. Willem Dafoe literally beats the shit out of Tom Holland in it, and there's something a little bit uncomfortable watching like 50-odd or 60-odd-year-old Willem Dafoe literally beating the crap out of 23-year-old Tom Holland, throwing him through walls, throwing him through floors and things like that. But you feel it, which I don't really feel like you felt in the other films before. This one, you go, oh my God, he's really taking a kicking. And there's consequences on the other side. You know what I mean? For me, though, the biggest takeaway was obviously seeing Tobey Maguire. There was like almost like a heart, he's kind of like the heart to it, and we see Andrew Garfield first, and we'll talk about it in a second. But then Tobey Maguire comes through, and it's like, everybody in the audience just went. It wasn't a gasp, and it wasn't a clap. It was a there we are. Here we are. Okay. This is right. This feels right,
and especially with Tobey Maguire, is nobody's seen much of him for
exactly. He chooses his roles. He's quite particular about his roles. So there was that just like like a warm bath. It
was
brilliant. But actually, it was lovely seeing Tobey Maguire. But actually, I think the point of this, and again, there's themes and all that sort of stuff. But the point for me was giving Andrew Garfield his redemption that he did, that he needed, but also deserved. And
you called that.
Well, exactly. But there's two sides of this. One, as a story arc. Again, we're in spoilers. So at the end of Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider-Man 2, Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy dies. He's trying to save her. He jumps down, but doesn't catch her in time, and she basically breaks her neck or whatever and dies. And the same thing happens here, but for MJ. But Peter does things slightly differently, Andrew Garfield's Peter, and saves her. And it's such an emotional scene, and it's really lovely. He gets that redemption. But actually, on the other side, in a slightly more meta way, those films weren't as critically received or as well received from fans anyway.
No.
And it's like, actually, it's saying, Andrew Garfield's a bloody great Spider-Man. There was nothing wrong with Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. To be honest, he was probably the best Spider-Man. But he was just in the bad Spider-Man film. So it's like, let's let him do it again. Let's let him close off, in the way that he should have gone out. And to be honest, he's probably not going to go out now. He's probably going to carry on doing a 38-year-old or 40-year-old Andrew Garfield, but whatever. But I really liked that. And for me, that's what it was about, and it was that lovely, just kind of a tip to the hat. Go, we know you're brill. It was just bad circumstances, so here we go. Let's do it properly, and it was great, to put it bluntly.
Other really fun things.
Yeah.
Ned and his sling ring. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I really
Ned the
enjoyed
Wizard.
the nice touches like the refurb of the Statue of Liberty,
Yeah.
which also gets a mention in the latest episode of Hawkeye as well.
Well,
So that's quite
have you
cool.
seen the last one? Have you watched the last one yet?
Is it Wednesday today?
Yes, it is
Yeah,
Wednesday
no,
today.
it's out today. I've not seen it yet.
I've not seen it yet either.
No.
Yeah.
But there's a very subtle, nice little tie-in to Hawkeye with a little bit of dialogue. So that was fun as well. The Statue of Liberty. I like the stuff in the lab when they're in the lab. Is it MIT?
Yeah, lots of nice banter between the three Spider-Men, which is great. And it feels, I liked that because it's like, they all look completely different, but there's something.
Yeah,
there is something inside them, whether it's the heart or whatever, that they are the same person, and I really like, and that's the scene that kind of kicks it off. Yeah. It's brilliant. It really is.
And then just other bits were just charming, like even like the Flash, who's like the bully in all of the Spider-Man films, certainly in the first one. He's like a figure of fun in this, and he adds a lot of sort of comedy value to it.
Yeah.
There's the Ned asking whether they've got a Ned in their universe. That's really cool.
But even some more of the banter between the three Spider-Men. It's like, what are some of the villains you fought? It's like, and Tobey Maguire's like, I fought this goo monster, this goo alien, and Tobey Maguire, Tom Holland's like, I fought an alien on Earth and in space, and Andrew Garfield, you guys have been to space. I've fought a Russian in a mechanical rhino suit, and it's like, I'm suck, and they're like, no, you're amazing, and it's like, but it's that calling back to what I said. It's like, no, you are amazing, and it's just really good. And there's a really funny line about Tobey Maguire's organic web coming out of his wrists, and they're like, does it come out of anywhere else?
Well, that's always been a problem for me as well, because I've never understood how some of them have it organic and some of them have
in the comics it's a cartridge, it's they make it themselves, but with the Sam Raimi one, they're like, you know what, that's it's a metaphor for puberty and all that sort of stuff, but also it's problematic, isn't it? For action sequences, you're going to run out, let's do it so you're not really going to run out. Anyway, there you go. So ultimately we come to a close where Peter has to accept that minds are gonna get wiped. He is. People remember Spider-Man, but they don't remember him. Nobody remembers him at all. And what I liked about this is we could have done this in the first film. They could have quite easily got to that point where actually nobody finds out about him being Spider-Man, but they're like, you know what? Let's have a slow build. Let's tell that story. Let's get to the Spider-Man that we know, where he's, he'll probably end up working for the Daily Bugle. But you know what? Let's get there after 3 films. We don't need to rush into it. Like the Raimi Spider-Man going straight into that sort of stuff. No, let's tell this high school story. Let's build his relationship so we get to know our Peter first, and then we'll kind of take everything away from him and put him where we know him from other films and from the comics. And I think that's quite a bold move, to be honest, because really Zendaya and Ned's actor who plays Ned, they could quite easily not be in the next film or the next 2 films, and they could even be another slow build to him becoming reacquainted with them, I suppose.
Sure.
And I think that's a bold choice, which they didn't have to do, and that's why I've got to respect these films, because I think that although they do kind of fall back into the the standard superhero action tropes and that sort of stuff, but there's always been something slightly different and a little bit more charming about these films than a lot of the other ones. Do you know what I mean?
Well, another reason I like the way they've closed is because it in a similar sort of way to how you said, it gives them the opportunity to strip it right back. Because as much as I've enjoyed this trilogy, one thing that really has annoyed me, I prefer my superhero films more grounded.
Yeah.
All these nanotechnology suits just become a bit ridiculous. And he's basically like Iron Man, but like looking like Spider-Man. And I like the idea that he's going to obviously, if he's not going to have all that Stark funding, he's going to have. You see at the end, I think he's made his own suit again, hasn't he? And it's just a fabric suit, and that's quite cool.
And I think that's what's really good. It shows that growth in Peter himself. At the start, he's just a kid. And he kind of knows that with great power comes great responsibility, but it's never been hammered home. And he needed Tony Stark.
Sure.
As that sort of father figure. But now we've done that, and we've done the Strange, and now he knows he's that part of himself, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, you can be not successful, but you can be that good person. He doesn't need the tech. He doesn't need Tony. He can do it himself now. And lovely, really, really.
There's a key line, isn't there, where I think it's Andrew Garfield speaking to him about dealing with sort of anger and vengeance, and how that could sort of give a mist. And obviously, one big thing about this film is he's dealing with grief and anger, and he starts to go that way. And he sort of comes full circle away from that during even just this film, which is quite nice to see. So there you go.
There you go. A lot of spoilers, but whatever. I loved it. It was great. Again, if you take it for what it is, it's so much fun. It's let's put it this way. The MCU as a whole, up to Endgame was 9-10 years in the making. This film is 20 years in the making, really. And I think it hits even better for us because we were, 11, 12, 13 when Spider-Man 1 came out. Perfect age. And now I'm 32, turning 33 in a few weeks.
Yeah.
And I still bloody love it. It's amazing. So there you go. Would you say, Gregory, that Spider-Man No Way Home is Spider-Man 2 or Me Before You, which is some crappy rom-com thing?
Spider-Man 2, please, David.
Me Too. Where would you see this film, Gregory?
Spider-Man No Way Home is available in the cinemas now, and hopefully still when this goes to air.
Yes. And I can imagine in a couple of months it will go to Netflix.
Yeah.
Sony did that deal, didn't they, with Netflix, where Spider-Man will be distributed there instead of Disney Plus. But there you go. Cool. Good stuff.